The show must go on. The MOC tutorial continues, part 3. I'd say now that the base is probably about 85% complete. Next step is to tile everything off and add some interior. And add some small steps on a couple of places. Before we do all that, however, we have to complete the terrain. Because as you can see, the terrain is looking kinda Minecrafty. Nothing wrong with Minecraft, but this is Lego. These are the parts that we're going to be using. Don't mind the glass, by the way. Some 2x4s, 1x4, triangular pieces, I guess. Like the most basic parts, but you can just pause and take a look at them and you should be able to find these almost everywhere. Unfortunately, this green color is quite expensive when you compare it to like the normal green color. So think about that before starting a MOC like this. I'm going to answer a question that might be confusing to some. Why do I add plates above the base plates when they're the same color? And there are a lot of reasons why, actually, some that you might not even think of. First off, these plates seem to reflect light a lot better than these ones. And also, when you add the base plates together, it does create like a little gap between them, and that is just not optimal. And elevating the plates like I've done and creating a frame around it makes it look so much more professional. Just looks so good. So on to my least favorite part, the terrain. I do not like it is because it takes a really long time. Anyways, who cares what I think? So what you start off doing is you create this Minecrafty shape using the most basic parts. I forgot to mention that I'm using these parts as well. When you have used mostly these and these, then you go with the even smaller ones and then the smallest ones to smooth everything out perfectly. But I'll show you guys an example once I'm done with everything. The most common mistake is to just use one color for the terrain, and that is just not optimal. I used to do that a lot. Yeah, now I'm using dark brown, reddish brown, olive green. These are the colors that I'm using for the terrain, and then we of course are going to add some flowers in that, which will add even more color. Basically use at least 2 colors for the terrain, I would say. Time to start building.
One eternity later.
Hello there and welcome back to the big terrain update. This area here is more of the same, not much have changed since the last time. But over here, however, there is a big difference. The poop stain has now become a path. I almost can't believe how good it actually looks. Because when you're building stuff that is this random, you don't really know exactly how it's going to turn out. But this is how a path should look in its first stage. It looks disgusting, and when you're looking at this, you don't really see any hope. But when done, it's gonna look something like this. Creating a frame of grass around the path is probably one of the most important things. You really need to try to get that one right. And I can give you guys some tips here. So you start off with the most blockiest parts, and then you go thinner, and it's going to turn out looking something like this. You just start off really blocky. So here we're going to have a little hill, and it's going to look something like this when it's done. If you've been watching my shorts, you will know that I've made a lot of parts unboxings. So because this is a longer video, I guess I can kind of explain everything in more detail. These parts are probably one of the most useful ones, to be honest. I'm going to use them for tile everything off, and then we're going to leave some areas with studs, like we have kind of done here on the staircase. As you can see, the temple is not quite finished yet. We need to add a little staircase there as well. Now I am inside the temple, and some of you guys wanted me to add like pillars, so I might add like 2 pillars here. I'll maybe try it out later. Also, these parts right here are very useful for Star Wars. Just very Star Warsy parts. I found these parts very cheap, otherwise I wouldn't probably have bought this many, but they can basically be used for wall decorations, and I've seen some people like build turrets and stuff with these. And here we have more like slopes. They're pretty much like Star Wars' best friend. They're the best. I'd say round pieces too can be very useful. These ones here are very good for like creating crates. Be sure to grab some of those. Got 2 really big mystery boxes. This is way too much money. This is like $1,000. These, which are going to be used for the roads or Coruscant, and also probably for the road in this MOC. In this one, we just got some normal like 2x4 plates, which are also super useful. And then we got some blue transparent pieces, which are like going to be used for glass and stuff. They're very cool and looks like Star Wars. This is just like the tip of the iceberg of all the pieces that I'm using. Just found some more pieces lying about. So these glass pieces right here are fairly expensive, but they're really good. So all we have to do now is just create the frame, and I'll get back to you after that. For you people that are interested, this is how it's going so far. When creating the frame, I'm starting off by using these around the whole thing, as I said before. So that is pretty much how something like that should look like.
A few moments later.
We are back now after about 15 hours of work. This might not look like much, but there is an insane amount of layering. Basically a bunch of these parts stacked on each other. It's not quite finished, about 99% complete. There's still some small adjustments that has to be made, but it is quite good already. Moving on to a pretty interesting thing. Well, underneath this menacing wall, we're building a trench. This is like the second trench that I've ever built. It might look a little bit big, but as they say, the bigger, the better. And something I kind of forgot about is I should probably make like a hole somewhere where like there is like an entrance into this little hill area. And I think I should probably extend the hill a little bit more because the trench is, well, let's just say it's a little bit tall. And we do need it to be tall, otherwise people will get shot in the head and there will be no point for a trench. So our next step is just to make this one a little bit taller and this one taller and this one taller. So basically just make this like staircase longer. And as you should be able to guess, it is not going to look like this. It's going to look like something like this. I'm not so sure that we're making the right decision with these tubes. Well, we'll see what we do with that later. Actually, now it is a little bit too tall. As we put the figure down, he can't shoot. It is a little bit better, but still not perfect. Anyways, I'll see you guys when I've made some more progress.
3 days later.
So the trench has now been updated. I'm quite pleased by how good it looks. As you can see, I changed the size on these two sections here, and it just fits so much better. One mistake that I did though was not making the middle area thinner. I think it's just too much space there. My plan now is to make it 2 studs thinner. I know it's just 2 studs, but I think that's gonna make a pretty big difference. I'm going to have to destroy almost everything, but I think I can live with that. Because perfection is nothing you obtain easily. Alright, so I'll see you guys once that is done.
12 seconds later.
Now that the 2 trenches are almost complete, it is time to work on the main road. But let's start off with reviewing my work first. I wasn't originally going to make this door opening here, but it does look very good. Basically, I built these stairs here leading up to the trench, and then there are stairs down and down there too. I'm actually quite surprised on how good this looks. The most time-consuming thing was definitely the terrain around the trench. But it looks very good, especially with the olive green here. And if you want to take a look at the other trench, it is almost finished. But as you can see here, it's just like a straight line, so we're going to make that a little bit more natural. 2 plates on top of each other like this is definitely the go-to when building a staircase. And the railing is also rather simple, but it does look great, especially with all the terrain surrounding it. And to get your plates to look this good on the side, I'm using these, just like a plate there. It just fits great. With all that said, now we have 3 missions left until we're done.
3 weeks later.
Hello there and welcome back. I am so truly happy with how this is turning out. This is definitely my best MOC by far. The terrain is just gorgeous and it looks pretty natural. The only thing that is bothering me a little bit is that I didn't have enough plants to cover everything. Unfortunately, I've spent all my money, so there won't be any more plants. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's too bad. But the next time I build any terrain stuff, it's going to probably be more detailed and look a lot better. And this trench right here just turned out so much better than I would have ever thought it would. I really like this little opening right here. It's just perfect. Looks very Star Warsy, and I can't wait to put these 2 tables together, and then we'll like kind of get a nice connection between these 2 openings. And you can kind of see how cool it's gonna look when they connect. Behind it all, I'm working on something big. I recently had to make a pretty big compromise. So I built all the floor using these plates. Now we're inserting the road. And the compromise was bringing the road down a bit to the same level as these plates. My original plan was just building it on top of these plates, but then I was like, well, then the sidewalk is going to be the same level because I'm going to use tiles here too. It's not going to look as good, so I want the sidewalk to be like 1 plate elevated from the road. It is quite simple, but it is complicated to explain. But I think the finished product will speak for itself. So what I'm going to do now is bring the road all the way here and the same on the other side.
So much later that the old narrator got tired of waiting and they had to hire a new one.
The tables have now been assembled. I couldn't be more proud of the work that we have accomplished. One question, should I extend this pedestrian crossing or should we keep it simple? The thing that I'm almost like the most proud of is probably how this road is surrounding the temple. It just looks so good. Now our next stop is simply tiling everything off inside the entire base. I think I actually got a pretty brilliant idea, and that is probably adding a landing platform on one of these sides. So let's say a landing platform here and then crates and maybe like a small garage on that side. I'll most likely be placing the new Republic gunship on that landing platform. That is all I have to share for now, but I'll be back in 2 weeks with the MOC final. So I'll see you then, and may the force be with you always.